Together, let's strengthen our resilience, accelerating the health of ourselves, people, planet, and profits. Now, here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator. All aboard!
Welcome. I am so excited to be here with you today. This is the kickoff of our new show, Regenerate. And our theme this week is a juicy one: transform your identity. This has a personal resonance for me, as you will soon learn, in the messy middle of my personal, professional, and organizational transformation the last 4 years. Our promise to you during this show is to have fun today, because when we're laughing, we're learning. I believe we need more laughter and learning to develop that emotional resilience that we seem to be needing more and more with the pace of change that's happening in our world. And having fun also might be this opportunity to just let some things go. Our second promise is to leave you inspired. So Mathieu Graham, who's our first guest, and I sincerely want you to leave inspired to experience some of the messy middle that Mathieu is going to be sharing, that I'll be sharing, really to help you move forward, to know that you're not alone in this journey of transformation. And finally, to leave you empowered. You know, change is happening around us. It's accelerating. How do we deal with it? Well, my belief is that we can empower ourselves to grow into who we want to become, and to have some fun along the journey, and to strengthen our mind and our body, our knowledge and skills. So my hope, my belief is that with Mathieu's help, we're going to leave you with at least one insight from ancient wisdom. Mathieu is definitely one of those sages that you will soon get to experience, or a modern science-backed insight from research that you will want to test drive in the wild. So, without further ado, it's a privilege to now introduce you to Mathieu Graham. He is a modern day wise man, a guide, a sage. And if I can say this from the bottom of my heart, and I will, because it's true, he's also a dear friend. So he's a sought after keynote speaker, thought leader, and executive coach. He really is all about helping leaders see more clearly, to decide deliberately, to act with integrity under pressure. Goodness knows our leaders are certainly facing that more and more. He's the founder of Deliberate, where he guides high-flying founders and serious executives through their own personal and professional transformations. He's worked with Olympic athletes. He's a student of ancient wisdom and modern science. And during my fraught 2024, when I was going through the messiest part of my messy middle of transformation, he was really guiding me to break down and transform my identity. I'm so grateful. So together, we are really looking forward to having a candid and direct and fun conversation. So joining from his home in Belgium, I have the distinct honor of kicking off our Regenerate show with my sensei and dear friend, Mathieu Graham.
Thank you,
Welcome.
David. It's an honor to be
here.
To be the first one.
Yeah, you never forget your first, right?
That was your opening line, so you got me there.
I love it.
Thank you.
So my friend, to help us have some fun, to get started, and maybe for our audience to get to know you just a little bit more at a deeper level right away, because that's what you seem to be so gifted at, helping go deep right away. What's that one thing you love, absolutely love to either be or do that gives you the most joy in your life right now?
Well, I would say that if I really have to say one thing, I really have to, only one.
I know it's a hard question. Besides being on this radio show.
Yeah, of course. That was the first one top of my mind. No, I would be saying it sounds a bit cheesy, but to be myself, to be feeling that I am doing, that my doing is aligned with my being and my thinking. Because then everything seems to roll. Everything seems to, as we say in high level sports, flow. And so the one thing I like to do is to be me. And if I'm really me without any mask, any cover, any protective shield, then I'll use the words of my one of my co-founders, ex-co-founders, then I am light. I can be light for people. I can shine light. And that's not me shining the light. It's me being me. And as a consequence, there is light. So not sure if that's a real concrete answer, but you won't get concrete answers out of me, I think. It will be a bit abstract and vague, but that's the point. I can never put an emotion in words. It would be, a straitjacket for emotions.
No, I get that. So, by the way, not cheesy at all. I mean, I think it's profound in its simplicity. And knowing you as I do these last few years, it definitely is that one thing that gives you the most joy. So thank you for being so vulnerable and authentic about that. You've set the tone already for what this show is really all about. It's not about perfection. And I'm sure there are days, my friend, when you have difficult decisions, challenging clients, travel delays, right? And so life gets to test us literally every moment if we stay present.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have another question for you, and feel free to, share as much as you would like. We're going to go to a commercial break in probably about 15 minutes. And this can be, a dialogue that we can have, but it's really about before you were studying high performance science and before working with Olympic athletes, before you were really known for helping high flying founders and serious senior executives deal with the pressure in their chosen fields. What life experiences, my friend, started to forge you into the being person that you have become so far, right? You're still, I think, in the messy middle. What's your origin story?
I think I was and still am a very normal little boy, and I still am that little boy in just an older body. Creaking a bit more in my run just now. I had a happy childhood, and I think one of the pivoting points probably would have been the disruption of my family around my 12th year when I started puberty, right? Good timing. That my father left the home, and he left us 4, and he had 2 other kids. So I have 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and it all went pretty, easy. As in, there was no big fights. There was just tension, like under the water tension. And I think what I did as a boy was I created a conclusion, an assumption that turned into reality. And that assumption was that, when one of your primary caregivers leaves and is leaving all of your siblings behind, I'm sure he didn't meant it like this, but what my perspective of it is that I started to look for love. I started to search for it. I started to strive for it, to chase it, for love, for being enough. Because, when your father leaves, you have the automatic message, which is not true, but you have that message in your mind saying he leaves because you're not good enough. So you'll have to get up and do something, and that's when the doing started to overshadow the being. So I started to do frantically, as obsessively, of course, because Your identity, meaning your reason of existence, your self-worth, starts to depend on your doing and not on your being. That's a very big one. And so I think it launched me, some could say in a good way, it launched me to performance. However, I would say it launched me to performance driven by one big fear: the fear of not being enough, the fear of not being loved. And I can assure you, and I think a lot of people listening will resonate with this, fear is an massively powerful motivator. It will move mountains. No doubt about it. 2 hands down. Of course, it will move mountains. And it did. I moved mountains. I traveled the world literally to be enough, literally, right? To go higher and higher and higher in levels. And so I believe it drove me to be obsessed about human development, about how to understand oneself. And my first physical expression of that was in the physical realm, more with Olympic athletes. Well, I started with just people like you and I, not the half gods Olympians, but just us, to understand this physiological neuromuscular system. And it drove me to Australia to work with Aussie Rules football. It drove me to the Middle East to work in soccer. And it drove me back to Belgium, actually, to work with Olympic athletes, always to optimize that system into the highest possible performance it can possibly bear. And the thing I think I have in common with all of those people, those high performers, or let's call them those obsessed performers. And I say that because I think a lot of people do not realize what intention is really driving their eagerness to perform. And again, fear can really move a mountain, but at a very high cost. And my realization later in my short life was and is that fear doesn't need to be the driver, because fear is making you push round pegs through square holes.
Yeah.
It's making you as a fish climb a tree. And if you're really hard-willed and you really have enough fear of not being enough, of not being self-worthy, you will climb that tree, even as a fish, right? So what if you came to your senses and you started to see that the real driver is really fear, and you started to see that the driver is like an ingredient in a cake you bake. The driver will always give the flavor to the finished product. So if you start to perform, if you start to strive towards performance out of fear of not being enough, out of fear of losing and hence not being enough, that fear will give the taste to your cake, to the finished product, even if it's a medal, right?
Yeah.
And what I've seen with Olympic athletes, as well as with top leaders, as well as with myself in the first place, I always test drive everything on myself first, right? What I've seen and still am seeing is that when people start to see that, there is an inevitable shift. It's not me shifting them. It's not them shifting. It is an inevitable shift, because it is a shift that is much more biologically logical. It's a shift that makes you put round pegs into, you guessed it, round holes. You can imagine when you push those, when you force those round pegs through those square holes, you have friction cost, right? The thing, you should try it. Get a Fisher Price, a little bucket of your children or your nieces, and try to push one through, and you will be successful. As I was. I mean, I went to, the highest performing teams in Australia and Middle East and what have you. I was performing, but I had an immense frictional cost, and the cost will always come back at you in ways of a social, a mental, a physical invoice. So I believe that when people start to be aware of the intention that is driving their actions, and that awareness is very easily said and very difficultly done. But once you start to see it, you will inevitably shift towards your design, meaning you will start to see that you have a tail, that you have flippers. You're in that tree and you're saying, damn, I'm a fish. And that's when you will let yourself drop into the water and feel that you are so efficient, that round peg smoothly runs through that round hole. No friction cost. There is no heat created. There is no deformation of the structure. Everything is as it should be. The puzzle clicks, flow state. They say, he makes it look so easy. When a pro golfer swings, he makes it look so easy. Or when we have another unicorn, big success, they make it look so easy. Well, when you have real successes, I'm not talking about one-time success. I'm talking about serial winners. I'm talking about consecutive winning, consecutive performance with a very low cost. Those people are very close to an alignment between their intention, between their energy, what drives them, between their software, meaning what they think, how they think, their belief systems of reality, their mental models, and the hardware, meaning their doing, their actions, their behaviors, their decisions, their non-decisions. Those three, the energy, the software, and the hardware, are aligned. And that's when performance becomes inevitable. I came to past that quote of Rick Rubin. I loved it. He talked about art, but you can, just take the word art out and put performance in. Art, the object of art, is not art. The object of performance is not performance. It's to be in that wonderful state in which art or performance becomes inevitable. What is that state, that beautiful state? That's when you are aligned. Aligned with what? Well, with your intention, the energy you are, the software you have, and the hardware that is running everything into a physical expression, right? So I think that drove me. Pain drove me. A need to be approved drove me into realizing, into an awareness, a level of awareness, to see that it's okay to be driven by fear. I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm saying it's okay. I'm saying it's not okay to not see it, because then it's driving you and you won't be driving it. I'm saying that if you have enough pain, that's why I love your title, The Messy Middle. When you're deep enough in that messy middle, you will reach a point of hopelessness, a point of, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when most people open their eyes. That's when they wake up. And that's when they start to see, I have a tail, I have flippers. Well, then get in the water. And performance will be inevitable because you'll be in that wonderful state. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I'm having positive reminders of our time together in 2024, where you helped me really separate these two thoughts that had become so intertwined, like a hairball, a cat hairball, of my identity is who I, how I work, or the results that I create, or the successes that I've had, the awards that I've won. And when those are not happening, because I'm making this really fascinating, scary, transformational pivot from being a corporate program manager to being a solopreneur, it's like the lowering of the water in a river. The rocks that were already there are now very evident.
Yeah,
And,
very
and
visible.
I can either ignore the rocks, which I had been doing before I met you, or I can muster the courage and, ask for the support, which I received, uh, thankfully in time. I'm curious, Mathieu, in your own origin story, it's probably not been a straight line at all. You talked about, the family challenges, but I'm just wondering, in your own, say, 20s and 30s, you're still a young guy, so we don't gotta go too far beyond 30. Um, but where it got scary for you, and where maybe you were tested in your own messy middle.
I think it got scary often. Maybe more scary than not scary. I think when I started, so I had a big part of my career was as a physiotherapist. So I first did a master in sports science and then went into the medical part, second master in the sports physiotherapy. And my first scary moment, I think, was it was just before Tokyo, the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2021, because of COVID, in which I realized that there was a point in the preparation of the games that I realized that being that sports physiotherapist wasn't cutting it. Being that sports physiotherapist, which had been my, my utopia, that was my bar, then I would have been enough. And of course, when you arrive there, it's a disappointment because nothing changes. Of course not. I think it's Oscar Wilde who said there is only two tragedies in life. One is not getting what you want, and the other is getting what you want. Because you'll realize that nothing changes. Nothing fundamental changes. And so there was an athlete standing in front of me and bending forward, and I was diagnosing the pelvis. And I have a firm belief, and you should, try that on yourself, that when you're in flow state, when you're really in that moment, when you're doing what really makes your heart sing, what really gives you energy, you lose yourself in the moment, they say. You lose track of time, right? That's a good sign. That means you are in the neighborhood of that flow state. So keep on going there. However, the guy was bending over. I was looking at the joints, and while doing so, I was distracted by looking at my watch. I realized I was looking at my watch. I was, damn, I am in the dimension of time. I am conscious of time. Meaning, it was my first actually painful awakening about the medium. Being a sports physiotherapist is a medium. It's not an identity. Yeah. Little did I know at that point, but I thought it was me, right? But it's a medium to express who I am. And it really served me well up until that moment. Up until, of course, it's not that day. That day was just a symptom. But it served me well until that moment, and it started to not sit well. Everything was fine. I was at the highest level and blah, blah. Everything was perfect on paper. Yet I was still whining. I was not feeling right. I was not feeling like a fish in the water.
Yeah. So I hate to say this, given what you just talked about flow, and I'm totally with you in flow. And we need to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back. Sure. After this valuable offer. Please stay tuned for more of Mathieu Graham and his transformational messy middle.
You're listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave, your personal regenerator on K4HD Radio. We'll be right back. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you ready to regenerate and live the life of your dreams? Start the transformation now. Call Captain Dave at 253-237-2558. Stop overthinking. Again, call 253-237-2558 or go to regenerativeworldgroup.com to book a free, no-obligation clarity call. Let's get back to Regenerate right here on K4HD Radio for more life-changing transformations. Here's your host, Captain Dave, your personal regenerator.
Welcome back. If you're
Thank
just
you.
now joining, I've been speaking with my dear friend, Mathieu Graham, the founder and CEO of Deliberate. He's worked with Olympic athletes, high-flying founders, serious senior executives, and little old me. And we've been talking about the theme of transform your identity. And Mathieu, we were in such good flow, and then I did the most disruptive thing of our flow, going to a commercial break. So thank you for your willingness to break that flow. But is there anything that you wanted to add as a result of that awakening in that Olympic training room with that Olympic athlete and trying to adjust their, you say pelvis or some other middle joints?
Yeah.
Anything that you wanted to add to kind of feel complete with that story? Because then we're going to go into frameworks. And I know you have an opinion about frameworks.
I do.
Just fingers pointing at the moon.
That's not a framework. I will finish up with that story because you asked me, the dark moments, the difficult moments, the messy middles in my maybe professional and private life. I already talked about one as a child, and this one was the moment I realized that being an Olympic physiotherapist, right? That sounds amazing to my ego. He loves it. Olympic physiotherapist. Did I say Olympic? Right? Did you hear that? So that's really cool. So
pinnacle.
And so it's in that room when I was effectively diagnosing an athlete, which, diagnosing was one of the things I loved. I just loved it, and I could lose myself in it. I always lost track of time. I was always too late for my other athletes coming because I just was in the moment. And that's the first time I was not losing myself in that moment. It was the first time I was looking at my watch. And that's when I realized, that's when I woke up to the fact that I needed to revisit who I am and how do I express that who I am. Because working with a perception of time, meaning working, not losing yourself in the work, but starting to work for a certain outcome, for me, it's the beginning of the end of high performance. And I always told my athletes, the moment it stops making your heart sing, out of courtesy and respect to the whole staff and yourself, you should stop on the day. And I'm not saying the moment you don't want to go train because it's raining. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the fundamental feeling of, I'm doing this just to be paid. I'm doing this to get the medal. I'm doing this to be someone. That's when the fear of not getting the medal, the fear of not being paid, the fear of not being someone kicks in. And fear will make you win one battle. It will make you win one medal, but it will make you lose the war, guaranteed. I've seen it so many times, and I've experienced it so many times. And so that was my big first leap into the dark, meaning I needed to find who am I in order to express that I. They say thriving. First, we want to survive. Everyone wants to survive. That seems logic. But then we want to thrive. And what is to thrive? Well, to thrive is to express yourself. But how do you express yourself if you don't know yourself? And there, the old Greeks, it's what I'm saying here has been said for 2,000 years, 3,000 years, but no one's listening. So I'm saying it again. And so it's the know thyself. Know yourself. Know what seed are you? Are you that fish or are you a monkey? And if you're a fish, get in the water. And if you're a monkey, get in the trees. You know? And so that was the first messy middle, to make that quote unquote choice, which I don't believe is a choice. Is not something that is calling on you to make a choice. It's not something to, now I have to make that good choice. Choice is just a signal telling you, hey man, you are confused. You don't see clearly. That's a choice. And what you should do when you feel that feeling of a choice, and I'm talking about psychological choices, what you should do is what you would do, that if you and I, David, we would be walking on a crest of a mountain and it's cloudy, it's misty. We need to go to the village, but we don't see more than 10 meters in front of us. And we come at a T-junction. Well, you and I will stop. And at that moment, we feel a choice popping up. Hey, David, I don't know where we are. And you say, well, Matthew, I was hoping you would know. So we don't know. So we have a choice, left or right. So the first thing we will do is create clarity. We will get our GPS and hopefully have reception and see where the town is. The same situation if we are walking on that crest, but there is no mist, no clouds. And the whole time we're walking, we can see the village on our right. The moment we come at that same T-junction, there will be no choice. We both turn to the right. No words are needed. That's when clarity collapses choice. You see? So what I did was not make a choice to stop the Olympic adventure. No, what I did was analyze myself. What I did was observe myself, how painful it was, because my ego did not want to stop carrying those Olympic rings on my chest, right? And telling everyone, I am not just a physiotherapist, I'm an Olympic physiotherapist, because it was my identity, right? My illusionary identity. Which is funny, because before being a student to be a physiotherapist, well, I was an entity as well, wasn't I? I was someone. And then I got in, and now all of a sudden I need to be Olympic or I can't be. How absurd. And so that's one example of jumping from, well, Olympic physiotherapist into the business. As in, I realized I created so much clarity on myself by studying myself with curiosity and wonder, like a passionate biologist would study a two-headed snake. He would say, wow, what is this? I've never seen this. This is a wonder. And so he would, throw a little rock and see how it moves, see how it eats, sleeps, and he would study it all day, all night. That's how I started to study myself, to understand myself. Because, well, it's very simple. What you understand, you can change. And what you don't understand will change you. As it did for me. It changed me like for a year. And that's why I didn't feel right. And it's only at the end, when I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, that I had that moment with the pelvic, the pelvic joint of that athlete. That was the summum. That was the moment it fell into place and said, damn, I need to change. And that's when I went into business, as in I want to work with people who have a bigger social relevance than the Olympic athletes. They are an inspiration to us all. I don't want to minimize the Olympic athletes, but I believe that with leaders of society, that can be mothers, it can be high-flying executives, but leaders of society have the biggest impact on society because they set culture. So that's when I did the first step. And if we would have a few more hours, I would give you a lot of other times.
Here's the good news. We don't have to finish the whole Mathieu canon in the next 40 or 15 minutes. That's the good news.
That's good news.
We want to leave our audience wanting more from you. So yeah, don't feel like you have to give the Cliff Notes version or whatever the Belgian equivalent of, the executive summary of what you do. It sounds to me, and this was very, very helpful advice when we first met, that you can't be fearful and curious at the same time. Such a simple advice that you offered or wisdom that you shared. And it sounds like curiosity was definitely paramount for you in that year that you started to awaken. Now, I know that many of our listeners might be thinking, well, was there a book that you read or was there a framework that you used? And I often want to chuckle with you about the comment that you also made to me, because I was the one that was looking for the formula, right? I was looking for, how am I going to get through this messy middle, Mathieu, like tomorrow? I've got 48 hours. I got to get this solved, man. You got to be there to help me solve my messy middle. And then you made this comment, frameworks are just fingers pointing at the moon. And I laughed so hard because the wisdom of that. But do you want to just maybe unpack that a little bit for our listeners?
I would be glad to.
Yeah.
Let's finish that. Frameworks are just fingers pointing at the moon. And I won't say this lightly, but all the idiot can see, and I was an idiot for a long time, and I still am in a lot of the cases, all the idiot can see is the finger. Yeah. And I think that's a big problem in our urge for short-term gratification and our false belief that we are broken and need fixing, our false belief that we need a solution. The moment you think, you believe you need a solution, you are implying you do have a problem. But shouldn't you first ask, do I have a problem? Is this really a problem? And I'm not talking about, there is someone who has it worse than me. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, is this really a problem? Define the problem. Because we're often asking the wrong questions. We're trying to jump to solutions without even seeing what's there. We're just seeing what should be. We're seeing what our belief system wants us to see. And so I love frameworks. I mean,
and by the way, just to be specific, for those that are listening, I went to you for help on how to have a breakthrough on selling myself, sales and marketing of my services. I knew I could do the work. I was getting really great results with my clients, but was very blocked in terms of sharing that story. And what you helped me, I understand, was my identity was that block, not the lack of technique or the lack of knowledge or the wrong phrase. I wasn't using the right phrases. It was really going back to the root cause. Yeah. And it was, you need to help me rewire my own identity.
It was really going back to what was driving those sentences and those frameworks you are using. The framework, the one-trick pony, the next green powder, the algorithm, the whatever they throw on the market today, it's just a hammer. It's a tool. It's a piece of metal. And
it's a finger pointing at the moon.
It's the finger pointing at the moon. And the hammer or whatever material is just a tool. And the tool is not bad. AI is not bad. The hammer is not bad. The intention using it can make it bad or can make it very good. I can build you a house with a hammer, or I can hit you on the head, right? Different intention. Yeah. So what is your intention? Why are you trying to get more sales? Right? Really? And that was what we were worked upon. It's to detach who you are from the number of sales you do, the numbers, literally, the revenue, the profit margin. It's detaching that. So you start to, can I write on my board here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I will draw up a circle, or maybe I'll just do it on my hand so you guys can do the same.
And just to let you know about timing, we've got about 6 minutes or so. So I know it's going to go, it's going to go fast.
Yeah. So I have a circle on my hand. The circle, try to, if you make it full, the circle, right? It's a full circle. We agree on that. If I
Yes.
ask you, try to make it fuller, it'll be very hard, because something that is full, how can you make it fuller? Right? It's like a flame trying to burn itself, or a knife trying to cut itself. It's impossible. It's as impossible as you trying to be more, or you being diminished by something outside of you, meaning a result. So what I'm saying here is that when you can see that you are enough to start with, that is your default state, that you cannot add anything to your self-worth. I mean, you cannot subtract anything from your self-worth. Even if you tried it, even if you want it, you can't. When you really understand this, not know this, I just told you, you know, but understanding, you have to live it to understand it, right? And so when you really see that, you will stop doing sales to not lose sales. You will stop doing sales because you need the money, because you need the clients. No, you will start to do sales because you believe you have a story to tell people that will help those people fundamentally. That's why you will do sales. And not doing sales would be holding back on the good for people around you. That's how you do sales. And I don't call it sales. I call it philanthropy. I call it sharing your story, sharing your passion, the energy that you are. That's when sales will not be sales. It will be a beautiful state in which performance becomes inevitable, and sales will be a consequence of that. You will not even be able to hold it back. It'll just flood you over, because you are who you are, right?
And I'm here to
You
tell you
understand?
that awakening and that powerful, simple, but not easy, knowing, becoming, being,
Mhm.
that took me several months. I'm a little bit slow, I know. I can be taught, as my wife Margaret of 35 years of marriage has reminded me. I can still teach you, but it's a slow process, Dave.
Mhm.
But once that started to really coalesce and
Mhm.
become part of my DNA, being in service was my intention. That before I picked up the phone and followed up with somebody, or picked up an email to outreach, it was always about lead with love, and what could I do to make a positive difference in their life in that moment. And what happens when, in terms of a business transaction or a business agreement, is just a bonus.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
intention that you helped me really, really internalize, it then allowed me to double my bill rate. It allowed me to triple my revenue in 2025. And have I got it all figured out? No. In fact, I really, really wanted to have a circle drawn on my hand, so you can, because I normally do. That's how I start my day. But first radio show, running around, blah, 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 right? Whatever. But I
Understandable.
want you to tell you that that circle is so simple, but it is incredibly empowering, right? These little
Which is
visual
just another
reminders.
framework. So the circle will work for some people and won't for others. And
Right,
that
right.
doesn't matter. I will throw at you all frameworks, and we will just see what sticks, like spaghetti on the wall. Just throw it and see what sticks. But it is just a means to get to an end. And the end is to get where you already are. We're not adding anything. That's the first thing I start to say to people. I won't learn you anything new. I hope I don't, because that's not the point. I'm not your professor. I'm not a student-master relationship. No, I'm just another human soul, just like you, walking beside you. And, well, I'm not letting you escape your own truth, especially not the inconvenient truth. And that's
Right.
where the gold is. But you just have to see it. That's
Yeah.
alchemy, turning lead into gold, turning shit into gold, right? So that's the beauty of life, that
Are you calling
we
me
get to
shit?
do
Because I
that.
felt that sometimes, but you helped me. You helped me realize, no, I'm not my shit. I'm whole. I'm complete. And I
Yeah, and
have,
even with
a
shit, you
shitty
can be
mindset
complete.
about something. Yeah, yeah. So in our remaining, we've got about 3 minutes or so before we need to wind down. Tell our audience, Mathieu, if you would, where are you going next? What really lights you up? What kinds of service are you in now? And is there something that you're particularly wanting to share? Could be a program, or it could be something that you've been writing, a podcast. How can people find out a little bit about you if they're curious, which I highly recommend people do? This is your
Well,
opportunity just to tell us where you're going and what matters right now.
I'm going to continue cutting what is not me out of my life, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pruning the bush of roses and cutting all of the branches that are dead, that are sick, and even the beautiful ones that are not beautiful, but not the rose. And so that's where I'm going. I'm going to continue to express who I am.
I think about the block of marble that you shared with me, and how the artist sees Mathieu in the block of marble. It's not about adding, which is so Western in our art. It's about just chipping away.
Yep, that's how Michelangelo carved David out of a block. He just carved out the bits that don't look like David. It's pretty easy, right? And when it's easy, it's mostly right. It's when things get complex, then you should run, because the guy telling you that one-trick pony, which is complex, which only he can understand, it means he didn't understand. Otherwise, it wouldn't be complex, right? So I think people can easily follow a lot of the content that I produce in articles on my LinkedIn, Mathieu Graham, on my website, the letter D, Liberate, deliberate.eu.
We'll put those in the show notes as well, so they're available to our audience.
They can find all articles there. They can contact me through those channels too. I really only work with a few amount of people that are ready to not escape their own inconvenient truth, and to get in that wonderful state in which performance becomes inevitable. That's the people. But to do so, you need to be willing and ready to, see yourself. And that's without any judgment. It's not for everyone now. It can be now, it can be in 2 years, whatever. But we'll do that. We will manage to realize where you are at that moment. So feel free to contact me there, and we can have a lovely, totally unbinding conversation to see where we are at.
Oh my gosh, that just warms my heart that you're continuing to, make that difference. I love it, man. So my next guest is going to be a dear friend of yours and mine, Bert Eckert.
Wonderful.
And also from Belgium. I'm telling you, man, I got to meet up with you guys and have some good Belgian beer and some good pastries. But Bert, he's the founder and CEO of a personal development, professional development. He wants to be eventually the Walt Disney of personal and professional development. And we're going to be talking about the human operating system, and diving into that mind-body unity, and especially his interest in emotional mastery, which was another kind of game-changing experience for me. So we need to have you back, my friend. I hope you had fun, and maybe we get you and Bert on together at a future.
And you will, you will have a blast with Bert. I think it's one of the most genius people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And maybe even, not maybe, for sure, more importantly, it's one of the most kind-hearted persons I have in my life. So you will have a blast.
Well, thank you for joining us. On behalf of Mathieu, I hope you experienced our promise of having fun today. We laughed, and when we're laughing, we're learning. That we left you inspired, and that we leave you empowered. So I want to add some heartfelt thoughts and prayers to stay healthy and safe, because we need you to balance being, one of my challenges, with doing. And, maybe to take one nugget, one brilliant piece of wisdom from Mathieu and our conversation. Take that one small step of either doing less by being more, or some persistent action that will help you navigate your own messy middle of your personal transformation. Until next time, thank you so much for being here. We're better together.
Very welcome.
Thank you for listening to Regenerate with Captain Dave on K4HD Radio. We invite you to give yourself grace and embrace the messy middle. See you every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Until then, you got this.